Is there anyone that who would like to present a case just off the top of his head? Yes.
I would. I'm working with a woman that I've worked with for about a year, and she came in and was very depressed, couldn't clean her house, couldn't do anything. And I talked with her a lot. She's talked a lot about feeling pushed around by everyone in her family. But now it's getting to the point. I thought things were going along well. She was beginning to assert herself. Now she's saying that she thinks that she and her husband are going to split, and she's scared, and suddenly I'm scared. I mean, I feel like I've bitten off more than I can chew. And I haven't really talked to her about a different orientation, but I'm just wondering if she's really wallowing around in a sea of despair.
Yes. What are you scared of?
I'm scared that maybe her marriage will split, and I don't. I'm just wondering my own relationship to that whole picture, and wondering if I have done the right thing with her.
What have you done?
My goal with her was to help her be able to hear her own needs and separate herself out from her mother, her mother-in-law, her husband, her kids, and her sisters, all of whom seem to consume her all the time, and help her feel as though she were a person in her own right. That's been my aim with her.
You were hoping to help her to develop a sense of self-worth, right? And in the hope that that will then heal her problems. Is that it?
Yes, to be able to feel that what she wanted was all right, that she didn't have to have it checked out with everybody in the family.
Yes. So what is exactly your question?
Well, I'd like to give her a whole different perspective.
On what?
On her life and her relationship.
Yes.
But I wonder if I can start talking with her about existentially valid thoughts. I mean, it's like, can I start a whole new system with her?
A new system. Well, have you discerned the meaning of her depression? Is it a depression, or is it just a general sense of unhappiness with the family relationships?
I think it's a real depression.
What evidence is there for that?
She says she can't do anything in her house. She lets things pile up.
Yes.
She can't make herself do.
Yes.
Just a general day's work.
Yes. Was there a time when she could?
When her children were gone. She had 3 children, 3 daughters now, all of them back home.
Yes.
But I did it for so many years, and I can't do it anymore. She said, I can't make myself do it. I just can't.
Well, as you remember, we said that in metapsychiatry, we must first of all discern the meaning of the problem and help the patient understand the meaning of the problem, and then go through a phase of regret and reach a point of reformation. From the presentation, it has not been sufficiently clear of what the meaning of the problem seems to be.
Well, her husband wants to move to Florida and buy a marina.
Yes.
And she does not want to go and put all their life savings without any way of coming back. It doesn't work out.
Yes.
And she has hinted at this, but she feels he's wearing her away. Eventually he's going to win out.
He is pressuring her. Is that it?
Yes. And she feels that, like everything else in her life, she will give in and she will eventually go unless she has the courage not to go, which scares her. Even. So I think the meaning is that they're facing a change.
Yes.
And the meaning, I guess, she doesn't want to fight.
They are at the point of retirement or what?
He's a New York City policeman.
How old is she?
She's 49.
49. So they are facing a major change.
Mm-hmm.
How long has this been going on?
He's been talking about it about 6 months.
Yes. Is there something that is universally present in depressions?
Do you sense of helplessness?
Well, that's a symptom. But in terms of meaning.
Anger.
Anger? Yeah, that's a symptom. Yes?
I was wondering about a separation anxiety, that if she was not depressed when her daughters were home,
Yes.
depressed after her daughters left, separated from them, and now she moves to Florida, separating from a life that she knows here.
Yes. That seems to make a lot of sense. There is always, in every case of depression, there is a sense of loss, which can be called separation anxiety also. But there is, first of all, there is attachment, which can be to a loved one or to a location or to an idea or many, of course. It is very helpful if the therapist can discern the specific object which is being lost. Psychoanalysis speaks of the loss of a love object. And depression is akin to mourning. In mourning, there is the loss of a loved one, or better said, a loss of something or someone or some place that we were attached to. A severance of an attachment. It is a universal perversity of man that he is inclined to form attachments to persons, places, and things. And when there is a separation required or imposed upon an individual by circumstances, then there is a great sense of loss. And depression is the emotional and mental concomitant of that sense of loss. And all the classical symptoms of depression, of course, are just part of that particular picture. The helplessness, the powerlessness, the anger, the resentfulness, the self-destructiveness, the loss of appetite, the loss of zest for living, the loss of courage, all the various symptoms which are connected with this clinical picture. Essentially, they boil down to the separation from an object of attachment. Now, if the therapist can discern the particular object which is being lost and help the patient to understand that she is not suffering from depression or that she is not mentally deranged, but she is just overreacting to the loss of something, someone, or some place which she has overestimated in its importance for her own happiness and survival. So the process of recognition requires correct discernment on the part of the therapist and a skillful hermeneutic clarification process to help the patient clearly see that she is not losing anything vital, that she is losing something that she has overvalued, that overestimated. Now, very often, a depressive individual will have a tendency to find a scapegoat and blame somebody for his misery. Sometimes, if a wife was attached, let's say, to the bedroom furniture, and they have to give it up because they are moving to Florida, they will blame the husband. But the real problem was the attachment. And in order to heal someone effectively, this must be discerned and clarified.
Could she, it seems like what she's mainly sensing a loss of herself and the meaning of her whole marriage. She went through a lot of pain when her children all left, and then now the two mothers are they're fighting over the two mothers. But in a sense, I think if she sees herself just with him alone, it's kind of like she's losing herself more than anything.
Unfortunately, we cannot help you to discern the real object of her loss. That remains for you to find out.
Could it be herself, or does it have to be
No,
herself?
you cannot lose yourself. Yourself is always with you, unfortunately. As a matter of fact, the aim of the process of enlightenment is to felicitously lose yourself. There's a great liberation when we lose ourselves. So that's a loss of some attachment. There are 4 things that we can be attached to: persons, places, things, and ideas. And when we have successfully clarified the nature of the attachment, then the patient has to realize that she is suffering from a mistaken idea. That this mistaken idea has caused her a great deal of distress, and perhaps other people around her. Therefore, she must come to the point of being regretful about that mistake. Having become sufficiently regretful, one reaches a point of a sincere desire for reformation, reformation, namely, changing our ways of seeing things. This change takes place not in behavior, but in consciousness. Therefore, all healing, true healings, take place in consciousness. It's not enough for the clinical picture to change, The depressions can have spontaneous remissions, but suddenly the depression, for instance, such a lady may get a compliment from the grocer, the corner grocer, and all the depression is lifted. But that's not a healing. That is just a symptomatic change of temporary nature. When a true healing takes place, a new perspective on reality is attained in consciousness, which alters an individual's mode of being in the world. Yes.
What is the difference between the regretfulness and the depression at the loss of the erroneous idea?
Regretfulness must not be confused with depression. When we become regretful, we have found something. When we are depressed, we have lost something. When we are regretful, we are happy. Paradoxical as it may seem. Any other questions? Does anyone have a psychosomatic case to bring up? Yes?
I have a woman whom I've been seeing since
Can you all hear?
last April, and she has a bronchial asthma emphysema condition. She's 53 years of age, married to a man who is also 53, and she has 2 teenage daughters, and her presenting problem was the terrific amount of distress that she was experiencing in trying to raise these daughters over whom she seems to have very little control, and she is constantly countermanded in her efforts to control these girls by her husband. I'm not sure for how long her psychosomatic condition has been plaguing her, but it is at a very advanced state at this time. She's on a lot of heavy medication. She sleeps with oxygen at night, and she continues to smoke. What else would you like me to tell you about her?
Well, you have presented it very nicely. Now ask a question.
I guess it's a question regarding the therapy of how to help her not go on punishing herself through the anxieties that she obviously manifests in her disorder, and continuing to smoke, which of course is a very destructive kind of thing. She has a very poor relationship with her husband, who is a very cold, unyielding, controlling kind of person. One of the daughters is very much like he is in that she is cold and very distancing from the mother. The other child, the younger one, there's a lot of sibling rivalry. And the younger one seems much more ready to approach her mother and to supply her with some of the needs or warmth that the mother needs. But at this point in time, she is very confused by the double messages that she gets from each of the parents. The husband distances himself, in addition to being a very cold kind of person, by engrossing himself in his work. He recently was going to make a job change, and then for some reason decided not to and did not share with her the reasons for this. The communication between them is very minimal, and this causes additional anxiety because she is forever trying to second guess why he is acting the way he is, why he will not share more of himself with her. She has some phobias that are not paramount, but she has expressed them in therapy regarding fear of going through tunnels, bridges that are a little bit slippery. She has the fantasy of maybe slipping off the side of the bridge, this kind of thing. What more can I tell you?
Would you ask what is the meaning of her asthma? Or what is the thought that she's trying to express through her physical symptoms? Would that be the question to ask in this situation?
Well, in every situation, we proceed along the 3 R's. Right? What is the first R?
Recognition.
Recognition. We seek to discern the meaning of her most significant problem, which, as we heard, was chronic bronchial asthma with tendencies towards pulmonary emphysema. Correct?
Yes.
This is the presenting clinical picture. As a background information, we have received some information about her family life, which is we were told that there is coldness and controllingness on the part of the husband, one of the teenage daughters. Of course, having 2 teenage daughters could make anybody sick. But we cannot blame anybody. We have to understand the patient's mode of being in the world, which would reveal the meaning of her psychosomatic condition. What do you think is the patient's mode of being in the world?
Can't breathe.
Yes, she's suffocating, right? Right? Well, what are the conditions under which we are suffocated, when we find something suffocating? Well, oppression is suffocating. Chronic resentfulness can be suffocating. Long-standing frustration can be suffocating. Yes?
I keep asking the same question and getting an answer, but each example that you deal with keeps confirming my question, which is there a connection between the physical symptom and the thought? And you keep saying no, but in every example that you worked with, it seems to be when a person had a problem smelling, it was because she thought her husband was a speaker. And with this one, when she had trouble breathing, is because the thought is that she's being suffocated. So I keep getting the idea that there is a connection between the physical symptom and the thought, and yet you keep saying there isn't. That a woman whose thought is that she's suffocating or being smothered could very well have an ear problem, not being able to hear.
Yes. Well, you asked the question, I remember, and we answered it. What determines the choice of the symptom?
Yeah, I did say what makes it, in some cases, manifest itself mentally,
Right.
neurosis, and
Right.
sometimes.
And what did we answer to your
It depends on
question?
the style.
That's right. Whatever is fashionable at a particular time or in a particular family.
So there's no direct connection between her thought that she's being suffocated and her having asthma?
Oh yes, there is.
I mean,
But you see, a thought is mental energy. I explained that to you. Now, energy can transmute itself in different directions. Sometimes it can transmute itself into a depression, or an earache, or a corns on the toes, or flat feet, or into bronchial asthma. So we don't have to worry about the choice of symptoms. It's not so important. We are dealing with mental energy being channeled into different aspects of the body or behavior. Will that satisfy you? And
it will happen.
next week you can ask again. All right, so we have here a lady who, in addition to her controllingness of her husband, the controllingness of the teenage child, and the coldness, suffers a great deal of frustration and resentfulness, which cannot be expressed verbally, probably, and it is being expressed through respiratory symptoms and some phobic reactions. What is the meaning of the phobic reactions? Is there a connection between the other clinical picture and the phobic fears? What is a phobia? A phobia is, yes,
I don't think this is what you would want. I was going to say it's an excuse
an excuse for what?
for being yourself, for letting yourself, taking responsibility for changing whatever is uncertainty.
Where did you get that from?
I don't know. I'm just talking.
No, a phobia is a fear. A fear of losing control, which presumes that one ought to have control. And the more one believes in having control, the more one is likely to be afraid of being without control. The sliding off the George Washington Bridge would be a terrifying experience of having no control. Yes? So then, what is a poor therapist to do? What's a mother to do? We have to discern the meaning of the problem, help the patient see clearly the meaning of the problem, help her assume responsibility for her problem, clearly the meaning of the problem, help her assume responsibility for her problem without blaming anybody else, help her regret her mistake, her mistaken assumption that other people are causing her to be sick by their coldness or by their controllingness. This we must help the patient to see that we are all individually responsible for our health. And we cannot blame anybody. The moment we have somebody to blame, we become incurable, because our healing depends on somebody else changing. And nobody else is going to change for our sake. That is a fruitless approach. So if we want to be healed, we must be willing to assume responsibility for our sickness. Seek to understand it in greatest possible clarity without blaming ourselves for it either, because nobody is to blame. If an individual develops bronchial asthma due to chronic repressed hostility and frustration, then he has to see that there must be better ways of seeing life and understanding our mode of being in the world, that these problems would not result in a sickness. Just because people around us are nasty or cold or controlling, it doesn't mean that we have to get sick. There are ways of responding to situation, learning to live in a situation in an intelligent way so that we wouldn't get sick. And it is the therapist's job to help a patient to understand how she got sick, what is the meaning of it, and what mistaken responses she has developed to her life situation, and then to find a more intelligent way of coping. And that is called reformation. Learning a more intelligent way of responding to various pressures and contingencies of life. thus altering the mode of being in the world. And when our mode of being in the world becomes existentially valid, then a healing can take place. It is not inevitable for us to live in chronic rage. Sometimes bronchial asthma and pulmonary emphysema in medical literature is referred to as a diathesis. What have you ever heard? What is a diathesis? Diathesis means a constitutional inclination towards a particular syndrome complex. It has been observed that it may run in families, that certain particular diseases tend to run in families, even though they are not contagious and they are not inherited. Bronchial asthma is not inherited, it's not contagious, yet it tends to run in families. Therefore, it is called diathesis, which means there's an inclination towards developing these conditions. But of course, it only confirms what we said about symptom choice. Whatever is fashionable. And in certain families, respiratory diseases are fashionable. In other families, other things are fashionable. Because the choice of the disease is based on hypnotism. What is hypnotism?
Suggestion.
It's suggestion. Suggestion can be deliberate or accidental, incidental. It can be malicious or it can be inadvertent. Wherever an idea is suggested to us in a sufficiently powerful way, it can take over our thinking, and it can result in various phenomena. Unenlightened man lives in a state of constant hypnotism, one way or another. Most of the time we are dreaming. We are dreaming about what should be or what shouldn't be. And we didn't even figure it out, somebody suggested to us. Sometimes the culture or the media, these television commercials with pharmaceutical companies, they spread ideas. People are powerfully impressed and intimidated by certain diseases which are being propagandized. And people suddenly find themselves experiencing those symptoms. It is important to be alert and refuse to be hypnotized. If we have a clear understanding of what constitutes being healthy, then we shall be able to be immune to the three ways in which hypnotism operates. Who knows the three avenues of approach of hypnotism? Nobody knows? Would you like to know? It is seduction, provocation, and intimidation. These are the three avenues of hypnotism through which we are constantly being bombarded. Some of us are more responsive to seduction, some of us react to provocation, and some of us react to intimidation. But unless we are alert and know about this, we are invariably susceptible, suggestible. Well, ordinarily we have to struggle against these things, but there is a way to be completely immune to hypnotism. Would you like to know what that way is? God consciousness can make us immune to the impact of hypnotism. What does it mean to be God conscious? Does it mean to go to church every day? No. If you go to church, you become clergy conscious. God consciousness is not a religious condition, it's an existential condition. What do we mean by that? A God-conscious individual is constantly aware where his intelligent, creative ideas come from. His mode of being in the world is based on inspired wisdom. He consciously dwells in the ocean, the infinite ocean of love intelligence. Therefore, the currents of the sea of mental garbage cannot reach him. Isn't that nice? It's almost poetic, right? What?
I said, when's the next book reading?
You don't need a boat. It's a helicopter.
Out of
That's what we are doing. We are trying to uplift consciousness to the realization of that level of awareness which we have called above the firmament, the infinite ocean of love intelligence. Perhaps you know that there are two modes of thought. One is the calculative mode of thought, and the other is the inspired wisdom. Who can explain the difference?
Calculative is causal, and if then moral, whereas the God consciousness is the state of being.
Well, is that helpful enough? Not quite. You have to come up with some better. But we are grateful at least that you said something. Calculative thinking is based on the illusion that man can produce thoughts and figure things out for himself. Inspired wisdom is creative intelligence obtaining in receptive consciousness from an infinite source of love intelligence, which is called God. It's God-inspired ideas. Enlightened man knows that he doesn't produce thoughts, that his ideas obtain. Ideas obtain in consciousness. There is in computer technology, there is a phrase of programming. You know, you have a computer, and that requires some specially skilled people to program these computers, which means to fill it with information. And then these computers can juggle the information, which can then be retrieved in a very helpful way. These computers give back to us the information which was put in. Now, calculative thinking, a calculative mind is similar to a computer. He is being programmed by the information throughout his life, through educational processes, and through media information, all the things. We accumulate a great deal of information. It is stored in our memory banks, and we can juggle them around, and then we can reproduce this information in the form of calculative thinking. But enlightened man is a bird of a different feather. His programmer is God himself. the infinite source of creative mind. He receives original, inspired ideas directly from this infinite source. Therefore, the very fact that this is possible for man guarantees that there will never be a time when a computer will be able to replace man. Which is very comforting, don't you think so? So much for today. Thank you.
Thank you. Help me.